episode number 228 of the Wholesome Fertility Podcast. My guest today is Neil Cannon. After 3 decades of suffering from bad eczema and receiving the same symptom-masking treatments, Neil stumbled upon something amazing. He reversed his condition and quickly discovered that those pillars could be applied to virtually any common or chronic illness, with extraordinary results. In his #1 best-selling book, The Vitality Secret, he highlights the underlying cause of almost every chronic health challenge that exists today. Further to writing his book, Neil began to attract people into his life who had reversed so-called incurable illnesses and was inspired to start the Vitality Secret podcast to inspire others to do the same. Welcome to the Wholesome Fertility Podcast. I'm Michelle, a fertility acupuncturist here to provide you with resources on how to create a wholesome approach to your fertility journey. Welcome to the podcast, Neil.
Thank you, Michelle. Excited for our conversation and honored to be on your show.
Me too. I would love for you to share your story, how you actually figured out how to heal yourself.
Yes. So and you just kind of touched on it, like everyone I know who works in holistic health, I come with my own story of healing and recovery. Just about everyone I know does, who kind of reaches this inflection point in their lives, which often just changes the course of their lives completely. And that's what happened with me. So my story is I had really bad eczema from a very, very young age. And it wasn't until my father suffered a stroke when I had my proverbial wake-up call. And I started to really research the condition that he was told he had a few years prior to his stroke, which was chronic inflammation. And it was just one of those weird events that is a solid memory in my mind. We were standing in the family kitchen and he told me that his sister, who's a naturopathic doctor and nutritionist and medical herbalist, and 20 letters after her name, she had told him and tested his blood. And he said that he had chronic inflammation. He said, I don't know what that is, but apparently I've got that. And I've been advised to get the mercury out of my mouth because my blood is toxic. Or maybe that's the word she used with me. Anyway, a few years later, he had the stroke. And I just remember this event in the family kitchen when we were making tea and he told me that. And I just had this kind of knowing that his stroke was avoidable. I thought, if he had inflammation, why didn't you just get rid of that? I'd already written a book on increasing testosterone naturally for guys actually by that point. So I was already kind of entering the holistic health space, but I wasn't fully in it. But I had seen this word inflammation everywhere and I had heard about it being the underlying cause of chronic illness. And I wanted to do a deeper dive, and that's exactly what I did. So I researched, read a number of books, I watched documentaries and watched some expert interviews, and very quickly it became very clear and obvious that chronic inflammation is the underlying cause of just about every chronic illness. And I thought, why is every doctor not screaming this from the rooftops? If your body's toxic, which is ultimately what it is, it's time to detox. So I had this inner knowing that his stroke was avoidable, and I've kind of proved myself by seeing that chronic inflammation is the underlying cause of everything. And I knew that he could have easily detoxified his body and got rid of chronic inflammation. But that's not the advice that he received from the medical professionals he was seeing. And instead, drugs. And that was the same with me. I was given steroid creams, antibiotics, prescription moisturizers from a very young age for about 30 years. Believe it or not. And all of those treatments are symptom-masking treatments, which means they just treat the symptom. They don't get to the cause. They completely ignore the cause. And not just that, they actually cause more harm because there's not a drug on the market that doesn't come with side effects. So by definition, that means that every single time we take it, we're actually causing harm. And I realized quickly that, too many courses of antibiotics can completely destroy a gut microbiome, which is the very organ you want to heal with a skin condition like eczema or any chronic illness for that matter. Anyway, that's my story in a nutshell. And since 2015, I was able to get rid of my eczema very quickly by changing my diet, my lifestyle, switching to an anti-inflammatory lifestyle ultimately. And then since 2015, I've been coaching and mentoring people to reverse all kinds of chronic inflammatory health conditions.
Yeah, and we actually spoke in the pre-talk about how with fertility, many fertility cases, of course, again, fertility is a symptom or fertility challenges is a symptom. And there are many different reasons for why you get to that point where, I practice Chinese medicine. It's the same thing. We look at the root cause, not the symptom. We don't treat the symptom. And it's interesting as you're talking about how there's so many band-aids and let's just stop the symptom. And that's become so normalized. When something becomes so common and normalized, people don't even question it anymore. It becomes just like what's available. And then most people don't even know that they can look for something else or that something else does exist. And I'm speaking from experience. I myself went through my own band-aid of the birth control pill. And a lot of conditions that impact menstrual cycle health really respond to inflammation, lowering inflammation, gut health, really at the center. Gut is so important. I mean, we are given so many antibiotics for no reason. I mean, most of the time, it's not something that we absolutely need. It's just, I feel like people are getting so misguided, and that's become normal.
I think the word you're using is spot on, normalized. I mean, we just see what's happened in the last couple of years and what's been normalized in the last couple of years. It's absolutely absurd. And that's what's happened over the last century, since 1910, when, are you familiar with the modern takeover of medicine, when all natural medicine was eradicated and they created a drug and surgery industry? We don't need to go too much into it, but that's ultimately what happened. That was a significant event in history. And it changed the course material taught to doctors, and everything became biased towards prescription drugs. And then it was normalized through the mainstream media, if you like. This is my take on the research that I've done. The more that we become exposed to the same information again and again and again and again, it becomes a program, and it becomes so solidified in the mind that we don't even think about other things. So I consider Western medicine as a method of learning. It's a method of medicine. It's one approach of many, many, many approaches to medicine. But most people still think that's the way. So why do we think it's the way? It's because of the constant repetition all throughout our lives. So some people won't even consider other methods of learning, other methods of medicine, many of which pre-existed or existed prior to 1910, because it's so programmed in the mind. So I don't like to use the word alternative health, for example, or alternative medicine. I think it's a misnomer. And I believe it was placed there to minimize any approach to medicine that wasn't drugs and surgery, i.e. Western medicine, because that's a patent-backed business where every illness, every chronic illness is a recurring revenue stream for pharma. And it's a phenomenally powerful and massive business. So if we can understand the workings and the origins of Western medicine, which is what I wrote about in my last book, and I've even expanded on it in my next book, we can start to explore methods of learning outside of Western medicine and stop thinking of Western medicine as the medicine, because it's just one method of learning. Right. But you just hit the nail on the head, normalized. It's just become normalized. And there are so many ways to, like what you do, there are so many ways to get to the cause and understand that the body's creating symptoms for a reason. We need to get to that reason.
I actually saw a really good post. It was another acupuncturist that put this on there. And then it said, stop saying, I believe in acupuncture, because it's not a religion. It's not Santa Claus. Like why don't you learn more about it and look at the studies? Because sometimes people say, I don't believe in it. And then every single time if I say, well, have you looked at the studies? No. So where is that coming from? Programming. Just like you said, it's a programming.
Saying, I believe in acupuncture is like saying I believe in gravity. Like it's there. It's undeniable. We are wired up like a house. And as the moment we can understand that with all the different meridians, the energy systems, and I have my own experience with EMF poisoning, actually, although it wasn't termed EMF poisoning at the time, 5 years ago, when my immune system became so compromised by my phone because I used to hold it by my face the whole time. It depolarized teeth. And as you know, your teeth are like circuit breakers for the rest of the systems in the body. And
very important for fertility, actually.
Oh my goodness, yes. Yeah. So Imagine how many. Well, shall I talk about that quickly? Just because it's quite
Yeah, of
interesting
course. Yeah,
to what we're talking about,
definitely.
because I think it's such an important topic. In 2017, I had a very mild cold. It wasn't a big thing, but I couldn't shake it off for more than a month. And I was living in Los Angeles, where I am now, actually. I'm not really in Mexico, but I'm back in Los Angeles now. And I couldn't shake it off. And I considered myself super healthy. I was consuming an anti inflammatory diet. I was exercising all the time, yoga, lifting weights, drinking vegetable juices every day. I consider myself pretty healthy and pretty strict paleo, anti-inflammatory, but I couldn't shake off this cold. So I thought, what is going on? And my business partner said to me, why don't you go to this guy in Costa Mesa? And he changed my life. He'll be able to see why you can't shake off this cold. So I did. And within about 10 minutes, he muscle tested me and he said, he pointed to three specific teeth on the right hand side of my mouth. And he said, they're all depolarized. And I looked at him like he was an alien. And I said, what does that mean? He said, your teeth act like circuit breakers for all the wiring systems in your body. He said, every organ goes through different teeth, different organs or different electrical circuits, and they all go through your teeth. And I used to be an electrician, so I kind of started listening. And he said, what we're going to do is use lasers on your teeth, so we can basically balance them again, repolarize them, if you like, make the polarity the correct way. And that's what we did. 2 sessions, and my cold went away. So he said, these three teeth.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah. He said, these 3 teeth are attached to your immune system, and your immune system is compromised. That's why you can't shake off the cold. And I thought, that's a pretty good explanation for me. Imagine nowadays how many people are going around with infertility problems or any other chronic illness or chronic symptom rather, not considering the role of the electrical body and what these phones are doing to us. Not just phones, any kind of Wi-Fi system.
Yeah. It makes me crazy because I have to argue with my teenager now about that. And she's like, Mom, it's fine. Come on. And I'm like, it's not okay. Like, I'm telling you. And I have to go back and forth. Of course, she ends up listening to me. She just likes to argue with me in person. But I think they never put it next to their face. I tell them, and even I don't even like the wireless headphones either.
I've never bought them.
Yeah. It's like, yeah. So those, but here's the thing I was going to mention to you. Since you were an electrician, what do you think about grounding? Because that's
Brilliant.
a way to actually take it out of your body. You need to do that. They do it for electricity. They don't do it for people.
Exactly. I love grounding. It's one of my hacks, one of my jet lag hacks. Particularly when I'm in the UK, I'll sleep grounded. But when I arrive to the UK, for example, I'll go outside, I'll walk on the ground, I'll go swimming in the ocean, even if it's December. And I want to engulf myself in these negative electrons. I wrote about grounding in The Vitality Secret, my last book in 2016, actually, and it's becoming more and more well known now. If we understand us as electrical beings, which we are, and we understand that when we place our feet on the ground, whether it's soil or grass or the beach, or if we go swimming in a lake or the ocean, we are literally absorbing these negative electrons into our body. And it's one of the most anti-inflammatory ways, which are nothing to do with diet or exercise, that we have, as well as being exposed to sunlight. So imagine just being exposed to sunlight, getting connected to the ground all the time, being in the water. I'm a kite surfer, and when I'm out there for 2 hours, I'll come back, and that evening, my skin will be so smooth, my body feels energized, everything feels incredible. Yeah. And even as a kid, when I had horrendous eczema, I'd go in the ocean, and within days, when we went to the Mediterranean and I went to the ocean in the summer, it would go away within days. And I'd consider myself having normal skin after a few days of being in the Mediterranean. So it's the same now. It's anti-inflammatory. Grounding, sunlight, it's amazing. So
yeah, it's nature. Nature tunes us. We need nature. And when we spend time in nature, we will automatically tune, because that's how we were designed to respond. That's how our bodies were designed way before anything else, like, way before even medicine. This is way back when. I mean, this is our body.
Totally.
So we respond really well to nature. I find
Right.
that I use that as well with
Yeah,
my patients because we feel better. And usually that's our barometer is
totally.
how we feel.
I
Yeah.
think I think the closer we get to the nature codes, I refer to the nature
Hmm.
codes, the better. Nature
Yeah.
has made no mistakes. Just look at the
That's right.
magnificence of it, the magnificence of our makeup and how we are
Hmm.
all interconnected. Quantum entanglement has determined that. Science
Oh,
has
I love
proven
that
it.
stuff.
Yeah. And if we can feel better by being in the sun, just like you say, that can be our barometer. So if we're
Hmm.
feeling better, that's a symptom of
Right. That's
feeling
right.
better,
It's a good
and
symptom.
a great symptom of feeling better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and yeah, just the closer we can get to the mechanics of nature, I believe, the better. And in the biohacking world, it is all about, well, not all about, much of it is about bringing nature into your city home, for example, when we're meant to be maybe in ancient times lying on the ground outside and waking up to the sunrise and being sweating and moving and being active. And there's lots of things that we could be doing in a city environment, which we're not doing because we're not in nature, which biohacking
Right.
helps with. Grounding sheets, infrared
Right.
saunas, breath work, and there's so many.
Light boxes
There's a few
too.
that I do.
So I'll often
Light
tell people
boxing.
about light boxes if they're in
Yeah,
New York and if they're in the winter. It really helps with the circadian rhythm, and which
completely.
is another important aspect that nature helps us with. And I wanted to ask, so what are some of the things that you found really help with lowering inflammation?
Yeah, so from a dietary standpoint, that's normally where most people start, as I'm sure you can relate to.
Hmm.
What I didn't realize is for the best part of 30 years, I was eating an inflammatory diet. My day
Hmm.
would start with breakfast cereal and milk, both of which I have found to be inflammatory.
Most people's breakfasts. I mean,
Exactly. And I'll never forget when I was much younger, one of my doctors actually said, "Look, your eczema's gone really bad. Take out gluten and dairy for 2 weeks." And I did. And it was really difficult because it was so programmed into our way of life. But
and it's
it
addicting.
worked. And yes, it is. Um, that's a good point. So imagine the program and the addiction of waking up that way and then not having it. It was a big thing, but my eczema did clear up. And then fast forward 20 years later or something, I realized that I didn't have to eat breakfast cereal and milk for my breakfast. I could actually eat something else, maybe eggs or something. I typically do like eggs, although I know they're not for good. They're good for everyone.
Right.
But having a high fat diet or high fat breakfast, for example, instead of a high carb breakfast, which spikes your insulin, then you have too many of them throughout the day, you can start becoming inflamed and become insulin resistant, and that can lead to all sorts of challenges. So I took out the gluten, I took out the dairy. When I went really strict paleo, when I first moved to LA, that means no grains, and I really started to up my micronutrient intake. And I was drinking vegetable juices every single day. And so many people I work with who have a skin condition or anything else, type 2 diabetes, pre-diabetes, arthritis, gout, fibromyalgia, even, a lot can be done by reducing inflammation in the body. So some of the main culprits are gluten and dairy, particularly in America, because of the hybridization of the wheat grain and the mutagenesis, which is altering the proteins in the wheat. So the farmers can yield more in less time, which is great for the agricultural industry, not good for our guts. It's taking us out of alignment with the nature codes. It's altering, it's playing God, not a good idea. So
No.
when we take out hybridized wheat, and then there's Roundup Ready, of course, and then we take out the milk, which is designed for baby cows to grow fast, that really helps. And then, of course, all the fake stuff, all the fake food, artificial flavorings and preservatives, going organic when we can. I know it's more expensive, but it can be an investment it is an investment in our health if we can figure out a way of eating organic for less. We want to be
You save
avoiding
money, right? You save money on medicine.
completely. I mean, it's like it's invest now or pay later. Have you heard that one?
It's
Yeah,
absolutely true.
yeah.
It's absolutely true. Yeah.
Yeah, if we think about what we spend money on a day-to-day basis, so no cost going out and spending $100 on a meal, and we won't go and buy organic food for the household or something, or we'll spend money on lots of things that we don't really need, and we won't put the money into eating well. And I think if we change our priorities and focus on health first, and it gets to be fun as well. It doesn't have to be a chore. Some people consider it a chore, but I think it can actually be enjoyable once you go down the health route and you start to weed out what's not good and what's good. The body changes very quickly. You have more energy. When you reduce inflammation, as I'm sure you can relate to as well, energy just improves because your body's not dealing with all the toxins or the chronic stress all the time. So a lot of magic happens when we start to clean up the body and go clean and back to nature.
I'll tell you, you hit a good word. You just said a good word, energy, because fertility requires a lot of energy to produce, to help create another being. There's a lot of energy needed, and that's why the egg has way more. And I mean, it's a cell. It has way more. It has hundreds and thousands of mitochondria, and it's there for a reason. It's because we need a lot of energy. It needs a lot of energy to reproduce, to grow into another being. And one of the things that we do for egg health is antioxidants to lower that, to help the mitochondria, so and also lower the inflammation. All of those things impact egg quality. And ultimately, what I find is when people are either living a lifestyle that, whether it's food or even emotional draining, then and their energy is just draining, whether it's fighting, because like having inflammation, it's almost like fighting a battle constantly, like at all times. So you're constantly leaking out your energy, or even emotional energy or stress. So you're leaking out energy. And one of the things that I like to do with working with people is to really improve that energy, to kind of take away the things that suck out the energy, because you need so much energy in order for fertility to happen, for conception to happen.
Yeah, that's so true. I just got goosebumps when you said that. Yeah, imagine what is required to create a new life. The body needs to be as clean as we can possibly make it, doesn't it? And I'm talking as a man, of course. I'm not a woman, but I do understand the mechanics.
But even for men, sperm, yeah.
Yes, we don't get off scot-free. The woman I told you I met, sorry, scot-free is an English expression. The woman I met, who I told you about before we started pressing record, I mentioned that I went to this book publishing event in 2016, I think it was, and we all spoke about what we did. And I mentioned inflammation. There's one woman who worked with fertility with couples. She said the first thing we ever do, and her success rate, by the way, was amazing. I think she said with IVF, it's something like 20 to 25% effectiveness. She gets 80 to 85% effectiveness in terms of fertility, because it's addressing first and foremost inflammation, which compromises other systems in the body, including fertility systems for both men and women. And men, if we're holding these phones in our pockets all the time, for example, we're going to be putting the EMF right next to our creation organs, and that's not a good idea. And no. I was going to say a ridiculous term. I'll say it because gentleman vegetables is what I was going to say, which is obviously a ridiculous term. But the point is we need to look after them just like women do. And if we hold these next to them, it's not a good idea. Thousands of studies have shown how EMFs next to our sperm, next to our testicles, destroys the sperm. It drops the sperm count right down. And of course, if we drop the sperm count down, we're also affecting infertility or fertility. And we're going to be dropping our testosterone, because sperm production affects testosterone production. So one of the best hacks for men fertility, I know it's mostly women on this show, but it takes two to tango. We both
they'll be telling their husbands, so it's good to get information.
Exactly. It's not just men, not just women who have fertility challenges. Men definitely have fertility challenges, and that's one that we need to pay attention to, particularly in my opinion. And as you said, we're both using these wires.
Yes,
Yeah,
on your ears. Because, yeah, I mean, anything that doesn't have a wire is getting to you somehow. And it's usually
yeah,
in the form of waves, but it's not like sun waves or things that are, or beautiful ocean waves. It's waves that are man made that are not compatible with your bioelectric field.
exactly.
So anything that's getting in the way of that, I mean, all you need to do is have logic. Don't worry about the studies because they're going to have, there's a lot of money behind studies, and you don't know who's having
Financing
the
them.
studies that are trying to,
Mm.
financing them exactly. So just logically speaking, it could definitely make a difference. What do you think of things like shungite, or they have those little shungite discs, or just like
Pyramid.
certain stickers that are
Mm.
used that you put on the back of the phones to neutralize at least some of the radiation.
I'm a fan. I'm a fan.
Yeah.
Like with everything we buy, do your homework and find out which ones are legitimate. I've I do have two companies that I tend to recommend because I've met the owners and
Oh,
I
which
know
ones?
one is for the stickers, it's called Omnia. I've just got a new phone, so I don't have one on the back of this current phone, but it's
Yeah, I gotta get
Omnia
mine.
Balance, OMNIA Balance. Oh, and if your listeners use Vitality as a discount code, they get 10% off.
Okay,
Um,
great.
they're
I'll
they're
have to put that in
fairly
the show notes.
Yes, they're fairly inexpensive, and you use the right word, neutralize or harmonize. They harmonize the effect of the EMFs. So that's one company that I like. Another company that I like and recommend to protect your home, and they also have devices that you can hang around your neck, or pendants, or put in your pocket, is Somavedic. This company uses various minerals and crystals and accentuates the frequency of these stones using their technology. What I love about this company is they didn't set out to create a device which has its current benefits. They set out to protect people in geopathic zones. You know how some of the best inventions come accidentally? This is what happens. So geopathic zones is where there are underground lakes, or sorry, underground rivers where above the ground there's like a dome of electromagnetic radiation, and also tectonic plates. The shifting of the plates creates this dome of electromagnetic radiation above, and they created this device to protect people living in those zones. And I believe it was in 2011 they made the accidental discovery that it also protects people from electromagnetic radiation. Wi-Fi signals in coffee shops or in your home, or cell phone networks that are, I'm in an apartment block right now in Santa Monica, and I've turned on my phone and there are about 30 different networks. And I'm thinking I'm just
Yeah.
getting bombarded with
Oh,
Wi-Fi
totally.
signals all the time. So I think it's really worth investing in one of these devices. They're a little bit more expensive. From what I see, though, they've done the testing, they've done live blood analysis, they've even worked with Dr. Emoto's son, who is, if you know about the water experiments, yeah, with charging it, you can charge your water with these things. So you can just pour a jug of water, put it next to the Soma Vedic, and it charges it. Um, Meaning it creates these beautiful crystals in the water. And given where
Amazing.
between 70 and 90% water, it's good to be drinking charged water. So yeah, they're two devices that I like. So back to your question, I do believe in these protective devices and the shungite that you mentioned. I would just have a look on the websites and look to see what studies they have. Um, just like everything, that most of these companies are slammed online, and negativity spreads a lot quicker than positivity on Google,
True.
because Google's a pharmaceutical company as well. It's not very useful for anything related to health, true health. So I would just speak to people that you trust, look at the research, do your own research. I think with health, everything's about doing our own research, because we need
Yes.
to use our own brains, our own intuition.
Yes.
Look at
Our own critical thinking.
completely. We have to do critical thinking. There's a word called science that's been pushed around there's
Like it's a
like
religion.
it's a religion, but it's. I believe that in a lot of the examples where the word science has been used, it should be spelt with a giant dollar sign, because it's always preceded with a giant dollar sign. Sorry, not always, often preceded with a giant dollar sign. And if we can determine and discern what is led by a dollar sign and what is not, it helps us to get to the actual truth. And typically
That's a good point.
yeah. So I believe the body is a phenomenally powerful self-healing machine. I believe the body can heal just about anything. I have witnessed and experienced and interviewed people who have reversed the most incurable of illnesses by stepping away from the modern conventional way of learning in medicine. And they might have attended a Dr. Joe Dispenza event, for example, for a week.
Oh,
Or
I
yeah,
did. I just recently did. And I was going to mention it to you. It's phenomenal, and that's
totally,
using the mind too.
completely.
And
Our brain
it can
chemist.
create
Yeah.
a pharmacy because they
Mm.
actually do research. They do their own research on about half of the participants, which is 1,850 that went
Where did you go?
sign up to be part of the Orlando.
Nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it was. It's just I know they had one in San Diego
Yeah.
at one point.
Sorry, I just interrupted you. Yeah,
Oh no, it's okay.
I went in June and December last year to Cancun. So,
Oh yeah, that must be
oh, it
nice.
was incredible. So you were saying, yeah, 1,850 people, that a lot of them were tested. Isn't that
A lot of them
amazing?
were tested. It's incredible. And so he tests them and then he sees basically that their blood starts to have pharmaceutical chemicals that are, and he goes, so where in the world is that coming from if you're not taking it? Like your brain is signaling the body to create its own pharmacy. It's just, it boggles the mind because it's so much more vast than we've ever been led to believe
Completely.
about
We are
ourselves.
we are more magnificent than we've ever been allowed to believe. Yeah, I love that question. I'll never forget on both occasions, he had the scientist up on stage calling in like a world-renowned scientist, a brilliant mind. And he talks about the new information in the blood. The blood carries information. That's why we're allowed, that's why we can test it and determine our health. It has information in it. And there was something like 1,500 new snippets of information that were in the blood of novice meditators and advanced meditators after a matter of days. And yeah, Dr. Joe turns to the scientist and said, can you confirm that there's new information in the blood compared with 3 days ago? And the scientist says, yes, it's there. And Dr. Joe says, can you tell us where it's from? And the scientist said, focusing on nothing, apparently.
Yeah.
It's And of course, we have a room
Amazing.
full of meditators laughing at this point because that's what we're doing. We're tuning into the field and we're
That's right.
downloading this new information. We got these anti-cancer metabolites, these very powerful pharmaceuticals in, or not pharmaceuticals, but we have chemicals, healing chemicals created through thought alone and through downloading, if you like, into the body from this divine intelligence that we are all a part of and connected to. And the data that he has is undeniable. It's not just Dr. Joe, by the way. There's other people doing these tests, but I do love Dr. Joe's way of teaching
I
and
love him.
explaining these quantum principles. It's just amazing.
It is because it really bridges science and what people call woo woo. You know, I use that term just to describe it, but woo woo is not woo woo for
Totally
the
not.
most part. But the fact that he really explains it scientifically is what makes him a pioneer now because he's quantifying it where he's giving data to prove what he's saying and what he's seeing. And so when you have that, he tends to draw a lot of scientists to his events, scientists and doctors, like
Yeah,
Western doctors. So it's really just changing the whole narrative of what really exists or the human body and the mind.
totally. And that's what we need, right? If we do believe that we have to follow the science all the time, let's follow the right science. Let's look at the
Yeah.
science which is connecting people to nature and looking at the data of connecting
The
people back to
empowering
nature and
science, right?
empowering people. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just amazing. I took so many notes on both events that I went to, and I put them on my site as well, actually. And talking about infertility, for example, that's a big, as I'm sure you know, one of the
Yeah.
main things people come away with. And it's by dropping into the quantum field for 7 days, or not just 7 days, it's a daily practice.
Yes.
Some people do have the most remarkable transformations in a matter of days, sometimes spontaneous. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a methodology behind spontaneous remissions. We'd often think about them as miracles because we're just not aware of this information. It's not written about in the mainstream media. And
It's not normalized,
again and
right?
again,
That word again.
we need to normalize this stuff. That's
Yeah,
what I'd
that's
love to
right.
help to do. Normalize the quantum, normalize energy medicine, normalize naturopathic medicine, normalize homeopathic medicine, normalize all of that, because then we can take our power back, and normalize Chinese medicine and, all of those things, because then we can take our power back and heal ourselves, because the body is designed to heal itself.
100%. I mean, you're speaking my language totally on
Yeah.
this whole episode. Just quick question about the Soma Vedic. Is that an orgone technology? Is that what that is?
You know what? I cannot remember the actual technology that's inside it off the top of my head. It might be, but there are so many stones and minerals that have this effect. That might be one of the substances they use, but I'm also
And
familiar
then
with that one.
also the stickers that you put on the phone, can you put it outside of your case or do you have to put it on the actual phone?
Outside. So I have one on my
Oh, you could put it
laptop.
outside.
I can't show you the laptop because
So you could
it's
put it
on
out
it.
like on the actual phone case.
Exactly. Oh, sorry, on the phone itself, but not the
Oh,
case.
okay, so you have to take it out, put it on, and then put it back on. Put the
Yes.
case back
Yeah,
on.
that's
Got it.
my understanding.
Okay.
Yeah. Um, yeah. It is. The human brain probably can't comprehend how these stickers work, but once you see they're quantum stickers, essentially, their frequency, they harmonize the frequencies. Once you see the testing, look on the websites for the testing,
Right.
see with your own mind, is that a valid test? A lot of people will say, oh, the test isn't valid because it's not peer reviewed, but a lot of it can be valid.
Right.
And some of it is peer reviewed. Just have a look. It might not be on PubMed yet, but even then it's questionable. So
Right.
just have a look and see what feels right, you know. So yeah, I think there are good ones, and I think there are not so good ones. So that's why I like to
Yeah,
recommend
it's like anything.
what I've discovered and what I believe to be true. Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So great. Well, if people are interested in working with you, like what offerings do you provide?
Yeah, so normally I work with people one on one or in a group setting. My books, by the way, of course, show what I do on a one to one or group setting basis. When I work on a one to one or group setting, I guide people through what I call the 4 pillars of vitality. So the physical, mental, emotional, energetic. Most people on their vitality journey, I call it a vitality journey, they start off with the physical because it's most tangible, it's most relatable to most people. So switching to an anti-inflammatory diet makes a lot of sense. So we start to do that, making sure we're moving every day and detoxifying, because if we're sedentary and we're not moving, we're not detoxifying. Understanding what internal toxins might be causing stressors on the body, external toxins, we've touched on one of them, but there's many other external toxins which can potentially cause inflammation. So look, the physical piece is encompassing all of those things. The mental one is really about gearing up your psychology for your commitment to your vitality and to live in the best body you can, and also really understanding the power of the placebo effect. Making sure we're not initiating the nocebo effect. So the
That's
placebo
right.
effect works in our favor, and we know that we can take a pill and through the sheer power of belief, heal the body through thought alone. It's phenomenal. We need to give that more attention. The nocebo effect is the opposite of that. It's knowing that the mind, our thoughts can make us vital or they can make us sick. So if we become more aware of our thoughts, become the conscious observer of our thoughts, then we can start to heal through thought alone. And a lot of people, using the teachings of Joe Dispenza, for example, we wake up and we have the same thoughts, the same emotions, we have the same habits and the same cycles of thought, and the same, our days are like repetitions of the days before. And that includes not just the actions and going down the road for the coffee and driving to work and whatever it is, getting in, there's a sequence that tends to become habitual. If we can change that, as well as the thoughts about relationship with an identity of a symptom, for example. If we're telling ourselves every single day, if I tell myself, if I wake up and talk about my eczema to everyone, I'm starting to solidify this symptom that used to play a big part in my life. So when I work with people, I like to help them or encourage them to disassociate from the label that has been given to whatever symptom that they are experiencing because of the nocebo effect. So
I like the I word.
yeah,
The I word,
right,
infertility.
exactly. Right, I like that. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't like that word.
yeah, exactly. And I'm all about getting to the cause. So if the body's got a symptom, it doesn't matter what the name of the symptom is, there is always an underlying cause. So if we can peel back the layers of the onion, we can normally find that most symptoms are rooted in toxins and or trauma. That's really simplistically how I think every illness is created in the body. Every symptom is created in the body. So I'm currently listening to an amazing audiobook called The Body Code. And he's kind of Dr. Bradley Nelson. I've implemented his teachings for many years, actually helping people to release trapped emotions and trauma. Most people, I'm now covering the emotional pillar, by the way, of my 4 pillars. I've just realized I've just kind of been rambling on. The emotional piece is so important. Most people can relate to how chronic stress leads to illness. It does. If we live by the hormones of stress, we're compromising the immune system. And it's spoken about how 90% of chronic illness is down to chronic stress. So if we can understand that, we can also understand that underneath stress is actually trauma. It's how we react and perceive our world around us. It's not the actual events themselves. And what makes us more reactive is typically trauma. So I've just brushed over a huge topic there, but let's talk about trauma for a second. Trauma is stored like electromagnetic bundles of energy. And when we go through life, or even before life, even in the womb, or even ancestral trauma, we can inherit trauma. This gets stored in the body like electromagnetic bundles of energy. And this is where it might sound a little woo-woo, but when we understand that there's physics behind emotions, it really starts to make sense. And have you heard the slogan, the organs weep the tears the eyes refuse to shed?
Oh, I like that. No, I haven't.
Yeah.
That's great, though.
It's a big one, particularly for anyone who's experienced the symptom of the eye symptom as well, because if we understand that when we go through life, we experience events in our lives which jolt us, they kind of take us out of alignment, and they leave an energetic imprint on our lives. And these emotions get stored like electromagnetic bundles of energy, because we are electromagnetic beings. We are energy beings before we are physical. We're about 99.999 many nines energy or empty space, and 0.0 many 01 matter. So by definition, then emotions are also energy, and energy can get trapped in the body, and it can get lodged in organs, any organs throughout the body. It can be in your joints. I've had clients get rid of joint pain or hip pain or lower back pain, migraines in a matter of minutes in one session, that have often been a hindrance for years using emotional release. So if we can do that, yeah, it is. And I think this is one of the most important pieces to look at. And for most people, they'll either not look at it at all, or it will be the last place they go to. And I believe it should be the first place we go to, because we can save a lot of time and money by getting straight to the cause, which is normally a trapped emotion or 2 or 3 in the organs affected. From a body electric standpoint, we're talking about this earlier, and the meridians. We know that a characteristic of all chronic illness is low voltage to an organ. So the organ in question, whatever organ it is, consider not enough power going to that organ. What is a reason for not enough power going to that organ? Well, it could be insufficient cell fuels, could be lack of oxygen or water or nutrients, or they might not be eradicating waste, might not be getting enough sunlight, might not be grounding enough. There could be some basic things which the body might be missing out on. There might be too many toxins, dropping the voltage, creating inflammation, dropping the energy. Or there might be trapped emotions. And this is normally the case with just about every chronic symptom. So if there's this electromagnetic bundle of energy, the analogy I give is like a garden hose. If you were to have free flowing water coming out of your garden hose and put your foot on it, the flow would drop. And that's kind of the analogy I use to create or to help people understand what happens with trapped emotions. It drops the voltage. It stops the flow of electrons going around the body. Another analogy I use is if the light is flickering in your home, an electrician would go and reverse engineer why that's happening. So they'd go, oh, is it the switch? Is it the corroded wire in the wall? Is there a leak somewhere, causing a problem? Anyway, they get to the cause and they'd fix it at the cause so the light stops flickering, so the power goes back to it. That's what we need to do with the human body. Figure out why there is that light on your dashboard. I kind of jumped ahead again. Symptoms are like warning lights on your dashboard. I'm sure you've heard this analogy. If the engine oil light is on your car dashboard, the standard of care in the normal way of dealing with cars is to take your car to the mechanic and they will fix it. They'll change the oil or they'll fix a leak, and then your light will just automatically turn off. That's really what we need to be doing with the body and with medicine, by getting to the cause and giving the body what it needs so the body can heal itself, so the symptom can naturally turn off. It's not a good idea to just kind of put a piece of tape over the light to stop it flashing, or go into an electrician to rewire it so the light stops flashing, when we need to be going to the mechanic to stop, to fix it at the cause. So we needed to figure out, become like our best personal health advocate, do that reverse engineering, figure out why the body is creating the symptom that it's creating. And then, by more often than not, it's normally down to toxins and trauma. So I'm simplifying things, of course. There's a process, but that's, in my opinion, a better way to get to the cause of illness than just taking a drug, which all cause harm. Of course, there's absolutely a place to be taking pharmaceutical drugs. They're phenomenally powerful in emergencies. They can get us out of pain. They can help us live with new symptoms while we do the other bit of work to figure out why we've got them in the first place. So I'm not trying to poo-poo them completely. They absolutely have their place. My own parents are alive thanks to them. I've got many friends who are alive thanks to them. So I do like to honor that and be grateful for the industry for that. I just think we need to be figuring out why the body's creating the symptom in the first place, alongside if we have to take them at the same time.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
Yeah. So the energy piece is massive, is the point of that. The emotional pillar is, if we can get rid of that trapped energy and literally release it from the body, it's amazing what can happen, and in a very short period of time. And the final pillar is the quantum. Or the energy. And of course, everything is energy, but I've called it an energy pillar because it can be separated in a way of learning about it, but really everything is energy. So understanding the power of meditation, the science of meditation, how it's anti-inflammatory first and foremost, and what we're talking about, Dr. Joe Dispenza's work and all the data they're picking up, this new information in the blood. Let's get to an understanding of it, because if we have an understanding of it, we're going to allocate time every single day to meditate, because we know it's the most powerful form of creating medicine, if you like. We know that advanced meditators create a pharmacy of chemicals in the body superior to any drug. That's the data that Dr. Joe now has.
And it's so simple and it's free.
Exactly. I mean, who doesn't like that?
It's like a no-brainer. Literally, no pun intended.
Completely. It's just amazing what, this is a free tool that's been available to us since the beginning of time. And we only have to look at indigenous cultures and look at what they're doing and realize that they're not taking a bunch of pharmaceutical drugs. They're actually healing themselves, understanding the power of the heart. You're familiar with heart math, I'm sure. Right. That's the science of connecting to the heart. This takes the woo-woo out of it, because we understand the science behind creating coherence between our head brains and our heart brains. A coherent mind and a coherent heart creates a pharmacy of chemicals in the body conducive to healing. Whereas if we're living in by the hormones of stress, we're doing the opposite. And some very, very simple tools can help us to create coherence between our hearts and our minds. And we know scientifically the heart has a brain. about 40,000 sensory neurites in the brain.
Well, Chinese medicine, they call it Shen, which is really the mind.
Okay.
But it's also the spirit of the mind, and the mind, Shen, houses the heart. Or the heart houses the mind, sorry.
Yes. I love that. Yeah. And indigenous cultures, they say the heart should be in service. Sorry, I did the same. The head should be in service to the heart brain, not the other way around.
Yeah.
And the Heart Math Institute has shown the direction of communication, because there's communication between the heart and the brain all the time, and the gut. There's three main brains. The gut's the other one. They know that the heart brain acts independently from the head brain, and they know that most communication goes from the heart to the head, not the other way around. But most of us are operating from our head brains, and we're missing the point.
Yes.
The more
we overanalyze.
Yeah. And the more that we can, I do this every single day. I do breath work every single day. I connect with my heart every single day, because I know that by doing those two things combined, it's a nice little synergy. I'm changing my biology every day. You know that you attended a Dr. Joe Dispenza event, and you changed your biology over 7 days. That's the reason I went for the second time, and I'll probably go again.
Oh, me too. I'm addicted. I mean, I can talk about this for hours, because I'm so fascinated, because I feel like we can only scratch the surface on like really how powerful, and I think that how powerful we are as humans. And I think the reason we can only scratch the surface is because I think that the mind has the power to constantly create reality. So it's just going to keep creating a new reality. That's why we can never truly pin it down, because we have such abilities to keep changing.
So true. So true. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think when we pin it down, we sort of minimize really the grandness of the true reality of who we are. And so for people who want to find you and your book, how can they find you?
The easiest place is my website, which is vitalitysecret.com. My book's also available on Amazon. The current one is The Vitality Secret. The next one will be called The Vitality Code. And my website's the best place. There are links to my social media, for example, Neil Cannon Vitality on Instagram. But I'd say the main hub, the easiest place to go to is vitalitysecret.com. You'll also see a link to my own podcast. I'm thinking I'd like to have you on my podcast.
I'd love to be.
Yeah, I interview people who reverse incurable illnesses according to Western medicine, and pioneers in holistic health and holistic medicine. So
awesome.
I know that
That's great.
That category.
So awesome. So lovely to meet you. I love meeting like-minded people, like-minded professionals, and I just love the synergy of just picking other people's brain. Everybody has a different perspective, very receptive to it. And I'm sure the people listening are as well. Well, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you so much, Michelle. It's been really fun talking to you, and I've loved this synergy as well. Thank you so much. It's been an enjoyable conversation. Hope it's valuable for your listeners.
So that concludes today's episode. You can find all of the links mentioned on the episode notes. If you're enjoying these episodes, please take a moment to share and leave a review. Reviews mean everything to podcasters, and I really enjoy hearing from my listeners. You can also find me on my website at www.thewholesomelotus.com. or email me at info@thewholesomelotus.com. I love hearing from my listeners. If you're interested and want updates as well as a free ebook on my top 10 fertility boosting habits, you can visit my fertility page on www.thewholesomelotus.com. I thank you so much for listening in and hope that you have a beautiful day.